Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. Yeah!
Hi, and welcome to the Pool Guy Podcast Show. In this episode, I'm going to go over if you should rebuild your automatic pool cleaner or if you should purchase a new one, and when to know when your cleaner is at the end of its lifespan. And I'll go over some of the pros and cons of rebuilding it or purchasing a new cleaner, and I'll cover all the aspects of this in this podcast. Leslie's Pool Supplies is a proud partner of the Pool Guy Podcast Show. Leslie's Pool Supplies has been do-it-yourselfers and pool trade professionals' trusted partner since 1963, providing quality products and services to make pool care easy and solutions and expertise to do it right. So I think automatic cleaners are a great investment for your pool for a number of reasons. The first one, it makes your job a lot easier because it keeps your pool swim ready all week long if you have the right cleaner and the right environment. Definitely your pool will stay pretty spotless with an automatic cleaner in there. And depending on which automatic cleaner you choose, they're fairly affordable, with the suction cleaners being the most affordable. Then you have the pressure cleaners, and then you have the robotic pool cleaners. So I'm going to focus this podcast on when to know when you should rebuild your cleaner or when to replace the cleaner. And I'll start with your suction cleaners, which are probably the most prevalent and the ones that people rebuild the most often. And the suction cleaners are the ones that connect directly to your pool's filtration system. So you connect them either to your skimmer or to your vacuum port side port, and they run off of your pool's filtration system. And they're running in the pool as long as the pool is running and you have the cleaner in there connected to your pool, kind of like having a manual vacuum hose with a manual vacuum head connected all the time vacuuming your pool. And that's kind of how I liken the suction side cleaners. So since they're running 8 hours, 12 hours a day in your pool, of course, out of all the cleaner types, the suction side cleaners are going to wear out the quickest. So the price point of the cleaners are low. You can get a good new cleaner, depending on which one you want, from anywhere from $250 to $450. If you wanted to get a lower price one, there's definitely lower price cleaners out there for about $100 or $150. But I'm going to probably just focus on some of the more premium cleaners, the ones that I think are going to be the best to invest in and rebuild year in and year out. So one of the things you have to consider too are the hoses of the cleaner. Sometimes you can rebuild the cleaner multiple times, but then the hoses wear out. Fortunately, there's a lot of companies making universal cleaner hoses on the market there. And if you go to eBay or any online site, you can find some good generic hoses that are just as good as the manufacturer hoses. So one thing to note, if you rebuild the cleaner multiple times, your hoses may wear out faster than the cleaner itself. So keep that in mind. That is part of the equation when you're thinking about rebuilding your cleaner or getting a new one. So let me go over some of the just some basic rule of thumbs as far as the cleaners go, and what the lifespan is for the cleaner and how often you should rebuild them. I think that in most cases that if you are changing parts in your cleaner, and depending on the cleaner, of course, depends on how many parts you're changing all the time. But if you're changing parts in your cleaner to a point where that adds up to the price of a new cleaner, obviously you're going to need to get a new cleaner at that point. So for instance, if you have a Zodiac MX-8 and you need $200 worth of parts in that cleaner, which is pretty much everything in that cleaner, you may consider getting a new one. They're like $400. Sometimes with a rebate, they're cheaper. If you have a Hayward Navigator, those are fairly inexpensive to rebuild. And so you can continuously rebuild the A-frame turbine, which is about $40, $45. You can rebuild that about 8 or 10 times before it reaches the price of a brand new cleaner. So you can see that you can keep some cleaners going for a very long time. Even the other parts of the cleaner are really, really affordable. And you can buy a whole new bottom of the Hayward Pool Vac and Navigator for about $130. That's the pods, the shoes, the A-frame, and basically all you would reuse is the top part of the cleaner. So you can actually do some things like that where you can extend the life of the cleaner. I really like the Hayward Pool Cleaner / Aquanaut / Phoenix. They're all the same cleaner, but they sell a lower body conversion kit is what they call it. Basically, It's all the new parts of the cleaner, new wheels, new gears, new turbine, everything but a couple parts on top and the pleats on the bottom. And this is pretty affordable. It's like a little over $120, and you would have basically a whole new cleaner. So you can do this every 4 or 5 years and have a whole new cleaner. Again, the caveat there is the hoses may wear out if you keep rebuilding your cleaner over time without replacing the hoses, so keep that in mind also. But I really like the fact that Hayward makes these kits for the cleaner so that you can actually keep rebuilding them and replacing parts and keep these cleaners running for years at a time without having to purchase a new one. Of course, they probably make a lot of money on the parts as you buy the replacement parts, but eventually you're going to need to purchase a new cleaner when you've reached the point where the cleaner is old enough to where some of the parts that you replace or some parts that you don't replace are worn and you have to actually get a new cleaner. With that said, you can keep your Hayward Navigator Pool Vac or Hayward Pool Cleaner Aquanaut Phoenix running in your pool for a good 8 to 10 years easily by changing the parts without having to buy a new one. At that point, the hoses will probably wear out and then you may consider getting a new unit. So I would say investing in a $400 Navigator or Pool Cleaner, you're not going to need to worry about parts for either of those. Well, the Navigator, you'll probably get parts every couple years, but as far as the Hayward Pool Cleaner, you don't need to worry about the parts on that one for at least 4 or 5 years, and then you would just buy the lower body conversion kit to get all the parts you need. The only parts you're going to change regularly are the tires on that. With a Navigator, you're going to be changing the A-frame often, maybe every 2 years, maybe the shoes on the cleaner, maybe the pods on them, maybe the wings. But it will still take you several years to add up to a brand new cleaner by changing those parts. So these two cleaners, I think, if you're looking for a cleaner that you can just put parts into and rebuild them and keep them running for 8 to 10 years, the Hayward cleaners are definitely the way to go. These two cleaners are going to last a very long time. The balancing type cleaners like the Zodiac G2, not G2, they don't make that anymore, the G3 or the Ranger, the only part that really wears on that are the foot pad, the disc, and also the diaphragm. The good thing, I guess the bad thing too for Zodiac, is that you can buy generic parts online fairly cheap to replace. As far as the body of the cleaners themselves, they last a very long time. So I would say if you're going to spend $150 or $250 for a Zodiac bouncing type cleaner, you can easily replace the parts over the years and keep that thing running. Probably as long as you can keep the Hayward ones running. So I would say 8 to 10 years, but then you got to consider the hoses on that. So these you can also change the parts on for a very long time. The Pentair Creepy Crawly is also a very durable cleaner. The parts are very long lasting. Maybe the new one's not quite as good as the old one as far as parts longevity, but nonetheless you can replace certain parts on the Creepy Crawly and keep that thing running a very long time. You don't have to worry about it. The one cleaner that Pentair makes that I really like as far as operation and cleaning ability is the Pentair Rebel. It works really great, does a great job cleaning your pool. It's really pretty much bulletproof for the first 3 years, but then when you get to year 4 with the Pentair Rebel or Warrior, it's the same cleaner. I believe there's another version, maybe several versions of this cleaner Pentair makes with a different label. But regardless, when you get to year 4 or 5, you're going to start needing parts for this cleaner, and unfortunately Pentair does not have any kind of rebuild kit, and the individual parts for the Rebel are extremely expensive. For instance, if you wanted to get one wheel, it's like $50, so 2 wheels would be $100, and then the internal gears are all sold separate. So basically, if you were to rebuild the whole Pentair Rebel cleaner from the ground up, needing all new parts, it would be more expensive than buying a new one. So I kind of put the Pentair Rebel in the throwaway cleaner category. Basically, you're going to get 4 good years out of it, and then you basically throw it away and get a new one, unfortunately. But it's not a cheap throwaway cleaner, it's $400. So I would shy away from that cleaner if you are the kind of person that likes to rebuild them and keep them running for a long period of time. The alternative to the Rebel is the Pentair Little Rebel, and this one is, if you have a small pool, this one works great. It's got just about the same gearing, all the same parts as the larger Rebel. It's got less hoses, or smaller hoses actually, but the price is about $150. And so when this one wears out, you can actually throw it away, and it'll actually be an affordable throwaway cleaner. So after 4 years using a little Rebel in your pool, you can just throw it in the trash and get a new one. Again, it's only $150, so definitely worth just throwing that one away. The larger Rebel, maybe not as much so. So again, if you're the kind of person that wants to keep your cleaner running a long time, I would shy away from the Rebel and Warrior and stick with the pool cleaner that has the lower body conversion kit. You can rebuild that cleaner very easily and affordably. So the other cleaners, of course, are the Pentair Great White. I find these parts to be very long lasting. The Dorado is the same kind of cleaner as the Great White, just a different body. And you can replace those parts pretty affordably. There's not that many parts in the cleaner to begin with. So that's an affordable cleaner to get for Pentair if you wanted to replace parts in there. But again, there are certain cleaners that you may not want to get because of that. The Zodiac MX6 and MX8, one of the main things you hear about these two cleaners is that all the parts you got to put in there. Again, the parts are very modular, which means that you can change one or two parts to get it running again. And the parts are actually pretty affordable. The tracks that wear out are about $10 each. And then you have the directional device. This is what turns the cleaner. And these do wear out because the cleaner is always turning and pivoting in the pool. They're not super expensive. They're in the $20 or $30 range. So you can actually rebuild your MX8 or MX6 for several years without actually adding up to the full price of the cleaner. However, you may be changing more parts in the MX6 and MX8 than the Navigator, and definitely more than the pool cleaner. So those are one of the drawbacks of that. The cleaners are great. I like the wall climbing ability of them, and they get full coverage of the pool. The only drawback with the MX8 and MX6 are if you have any long string-like debris in your backyard, the cleaner will suck it in, and then it'll get tangled up in the engine of the MX6 and MX8 and stop the cleaner. So basically, these are made for pools with not very large debris, dirt mainly. They'll work great in a desert environment like Arizona and Nevada. But if you have long leaves in your pool that fall to the bottom, I would say the MX6, MX8 would not be the ideal cleaner for you because the engine will get clogged up from the debris. But again, great wall climbing ability, great coverage, and the parts are not extremely expensive. They're easy to repair. And yes, you'll have to put parts in every couple of years, but to me that's not a major drawback. You're doing that with a lot of other cleaners anyway, and they're very long lasting. They have the Zodiac locking hoses, and even though I don't like these hoses because there's a few drawbacks with them as far as connecting them to the side port, to the skimmer, or if you wanted to connect the manual vacuum and vacuum the pool. A little bit of a drawback. You kind of have to rig it and build something for it. But besides those points, the locking hoses are actually very long lasting. I think they last a lot longer than the standard hoses. So you can actually rebuild the MX6, MX8 over and over again without having to worry about replacing the hoses because the hoses are extremely long lasting. I think they're much long lasting than most of the other cleaner hoses out there on the market. So you could definitely keep rebuilding these two cleaners for 8 to 10 years also without buying a new one. So you can actually keep your suction cleaner running in your pool for quite a long time just rebuilding parts because number one, the parts are very affordable, and number two, the parts don't need to be changed as often as it may seem. So maybe every couple of years you're rebuilding your Navigator, every couple of years you're rebuilding your MX8 cleaner and things like that, replacing any wear parts on them. But you can definitely stretch out these cleaners and get a very long lifespan out of them. Switching gears to the pressure side cleaners, typically they're only running about 2 or 3 hours in your pool every week, so the parts on these cleaners should last you a very long time. The only exception would be the Polaris 360 or the Pentair Legend return side cleaner. These work off of the return line without a booster pump, and so they're always running in your pool like a suction cleaner. So these parts will definitely wear out quicker, but if you're using a standard pressure cleaner with a booster pump and dedicated return line, typically 2 hours a day is all you're going to need with these cleaners, and these parts are very long lasting in them. They also have rebuild kits. One of the reasons why I like the Polaris Sport 3900 and the Polaris P39, they're basically the same cleaner with a different shell on them, is that they have a complete rebuild kit for about $160. You can put it in your 3900 Sport. It's got a new chain drive, all new bearings. Basically the whole middle section of the cleaner is replaceable. You would just reuse a couple parts on the bottom and then the shell on top, and you'd have basically a whole new cleaner. So you can run your Polaris 3900 Sport for 4 or 5 years, 6 years maybe, and then just get this rebuild kit, drop it in, and then run your cleaner for another 6 years. So the pressure cleaner should last you a lot longer than your suction cleaners. Up until about 4 or 5 years ago, I still had some Polaris 180s on my pool route, and these were the first generation of the Polaris 280. The only reason why I replaced the 180s on my route is because there was a part in the cleaner that if it broke, it was not replaceable, unlike the Polaris 280 where most of the parts are replaceable. So that's why the 180s were retired on my route. But the 280s, every part on that cleaner is pretty much modular, and you can replace them. I think if you're looking for the pressure cleaner that's going to last you 25 years or 30 years even, the Polaris 280 fits that bill. You can rebuild the Polaris 280 technically for that long. That's how long lasting that cleaner is. I have some 280s on my route that are over 20 years old, so I know that's a fact. So you can keep rebuilding the 280, just put the bearings in the wheels, change the drive shaft, whatever other parts you need to replace in there, you can replace and keep it running for many, many years to come. And you probably can do this for a long time before you add up to the price of a new cleaner. The Polaris 280 is about $580, $600, right around there. It will take you a long time to get $600 worth of parts into this cleaner over the years with it running 2 hours a day. And then you have the more complicated pressure cleaners, the Hayward Trivac 500. I like this one because basically when you open it up, there's just one main part in there. You replace this one main part and you have pretty much a whole new Trivac 500. So Hayward did a good job with that aspect of the cleaner. There's not a lot of parts to replace. You just replace the main part in there. And I've recently filmed this. It's called the timer valve kit. Once you replace that part, the cleaner is going to be moving fine again. They also sell a kit for the wheels, so you can replace the wheels on there and the bearings pretty easily. And then a step up for that is the Pentair Racer. This one here has a lot of parts in there. I did film a rebuild of this one. I haven't quite put it together and edited it, but that was about a year ago when I actually filmed it. I just got sidetracked with other projects. The rebuild of the Racer is not quite as easy, and I think it's a very complicated system. Maybe Pentair needs to rethink that a little bit and make it simpler, or just have a drop-in rebuild kit like Polaris has. I'm not sure what they're going to do with the Racer as far as rebuilding it. A lot of pool stores won't touch it because it's a little bit complicated. So that's a drawback with the Racer. If you do get the Pentair Racer, you may have some trouble rebuilding that one. I've taken one apart. It's not the simplest engineering, but you can still definitely rebuild that one if you kind of figure out what you need to do. And then the Polaris Quattro Sport, all the parts are modular in there. The Quattro Sport or the P40 are the same cleaner, and I'll have some videos up on that pretty soon on how to change out the parts in there. But I think, if you're looking for a cleaner that's going to last a long time, you want to get parts that are modular that you can change out. So do your research with the pressure cleaners. I think Polaris makes some great cleaners that are very long lasting, and they make the kits for them too, so you can actually replace the parts and save money that way rather than buying a new cleaner. As far as the hoses for the pressure cleaners, they're pretty much bulletproof. You just have to replace the swivels ever so often. That's the part on the hose that will actually leak. But the hoses themselves are very long lasting. Again, I've had some Polaris 280s with the original hoses for over 20 years. The hoses are quite stiff, and when you go to change out any kind of parts on them, it's really difficult. So at some point you have to replace the Polaris hoses or the pressure side cleaner hoses. But again, they're very long lasting. So out of all the cleaners, I think the pressure side cleaners are going to give you the longest lifespan in your pool. Robotic pool cleaners are a little different. You have to send them to a service center in most cases, unless it's something simple like a belt. But in a lot of cases, you have to actually take the robotic pool cleaner in somewhere where they can diagnose the problem and repair it. So these are not quite as hands-on as the other cleaners. However, the lifespan of the robotic pool cleaner before you need parts, a good rule of thumb is take the warranty period, and that's pretty much when you're going to start needing parts. So if you bought a robotic pool cleaner and they give you a 2-year warranty, figure that after 2 years you're going to have to start putting parts in there. If they give you a 3-year warranty, figure after 3 years you'll need parts for that cleaner. And they pretty much expect you to run your robotic pool cleaner maybe twice a week, 3 times a week at the most. and most of them are programmed to run for 2 hours a day, and therefore you're going to get a long lifespan out of the robotic pool cleaner because they're not running in your pool continuously like the suction cleaner or like the pressure cleaner running in your pool every day. So the robotic pool cleaners are designed to run for maybe 2 or 3 hours and then to be used maybe every 2 or 3 times a week versus using it every day in your pool. They clean so effectively and efficiently that they don't need to be in your pool every day cleaning. So I like that about the robotic pool cleaners. I don't like the fact that you really can't replace parts and do all the work in your garage like with a suction cleaner or a pressure cleaner, but that's kind of the price you pay for having the technology built into the robotic pool cleaner, that you really can't take it apart and fix it yourself in a lot of cases. Sometimes you can, but I would recommend that you take the robotic pool cleaner to a service center so they can diagnose it and replace the parts that are needed in there. So those are the ones that you probably can't do a lot of hands-on repairs with, unfortunately. But I really like the efficiency and the effectiveness of them. So I wouldn't discount purchasing one because you can't fix it. Just be aware that you're going to have to take it to a service center to get it repaired or ship it back to the manufacturer. So you may be without the cleaner for 2 or 3 weeks at a time, depending on how long it takes to repair the cleaner. So at what point are you going to need to invest in a new cleaner? I think at the point where the hoses are, for a suction cleaner, I think at the point where the hoses are worn down to a point where it may be logical just to buy a whole new cleaner. The body may be worn out. It just may look really ugly in your pool at some point. I'm sorry, but I have some really old cleaners that just don't look good in the pool. And so you may just want to replace it. You may not like the way your cleaner is working in your pool, and you may want to switch models. That's another reason to replace it. I think that's a good reason to replace it. If it's not cleaning your pool the way you want it to, definitely change it for a different model. If you go to my website, swimmingpoollearning.com, I have a list of the top suction cleaners I recommend, the top pressure cleaners, and the top robotic pool cleaners. Just click on the cleaner tab. It'll drop you down to the menu and you can see the ones that I recommend. But at some point, you're going to have to purchase a new cleaner. If you have a Polaris 280 that's been in your pool for 15 years, you may want to get a new 280, or you may want to upgrade to a different pressure cleaner at that point. So at that point, you're going to have to get a new cleaner. But there's nothing wrong with rebuilding these cleaners for years, putting new parts in, as long as you're not having to put, $300 worth of parts into a cleaner, because then you may want to just buy a new one at that point. But if you're putting $20, $50, $120 in there, it's definitely worth keeping it going versus buying a new one. So there's a certain threshold you're going to get to, especially with the pressure cleaner, where if the whole rebuild of that is $300, you may just want to buy a whole new pressure cleaner at that point. And with a suction cleaner, if the parts are going to be close to $200 or $300 at that point, consider getting a whole new one, because you get new hoses and you get a whole new body, and then you get the manufacturer warranty on that also. So there is a point where you're going to have to get a new cleaner. It may not be for a long time if you rebuild it all the time, but you're going to have to get one eventually. Robotic pool cleaners are the same way. Figure you're going to get about 5 or 6 years out of a good robotic pool cleaner, and then you'll need to invest in a new one. The good thing about that is that over the years, the technology improves, and then you're going to get the latest model with better technology, better cleaning ability, and all those bells and whistles. So it's not a bad thing that every 5 or 6 years your robotic pool cleaner will wear out, because then you're going to get the newest and latest model. They're not really made or designed to work and last in your pool for 10 or 15 years like the pressure cleaners and the suction cleaners. But that's not a drawback, because I really like how they clean the pool, how effective they are, and how thoroughly they clean their pool. But you just can't rebuild them like you can the other type of cleaners. Also, if you go to my website, I have an ebook available for $9.99 that also will show you other aspects of your pool care, along with the cleaners that I mentioned, the cleaner categories I mentioned with the top cleaners. And definitely, if you want to email me for any kind of recommendations, you can email me at david@swimmingpoollearning.com. And if you're in the industry and you want to enhance your business, definitely think about my coaching program. You can learn more about the coaching program at poolguycoaching.com. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Have a great rest of your week, and God bless. Leslie's Pool Supplies has been do-it-yourselfers and pool trade professionals' trusted partner since 1963, providing quality products and services to make pool care easy, and solutions and expertise to do it right.